Gabe, you offered him such a wonderful
All right,
gift.
camera's rolling. Hopefully it won't knock it over.
Okay, I'll try not to, like, kick the table.
Yeah, try not to. If it falls, just pick up the camera.
No promises.
All right, let's do the quiz.
Oh, Mom.
This thing. 10 questions?
Approximately. Roughly somewhere in that neighborhood.
I mean, apocryphy.
That's so nice of you.
Not exactly. Pull it up. So this is over the first 4 chapters of Daniel. We didn't cover that, but we'll do like a brief little overview thing today. But I imagine you guys can understand it pretty well. It's not complicated stuff.
No,
The last part of Daniel we'll spend more time on because it's more difficult.
Okay.
That it is. Okay.
Give me that quiz.
Let us see. Number 1. For how many days were the 3 exiles tested by only eating vegetables? For how many days were the 3 exiles, their names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. For how many days were the 3 exiles tested by only eating vegetables? Question 2. How many times better or smarter did the king find those 3 exiles after they had finished their diet? How many times better or smarter did the king find the 3 exiles?
Weird question.
Yep, but it says specifically, so that's why I asked it. Question 3. Normally, the king would present the details of his dream for the wise men to interpret. But what did Nebuchadnezzar do in chapter 2 that almost caused the deaths of all his wise men? Normally, the king would present the details of his dream for the wise men to interpret. But what did Nebuchadnezzar do in chapter 2 that almost caused the deaths of all his wise men? All right, now to question 4. After learning that he was to be executed along with all the other wise men, what did Daniel do after seeking an audience with the king? I'll repeat that. After learning that he was to be executed along with all the other wise men, what did Daniel do after seeking an audience with the king? In other words, he hasn't talked to the king yet. He's just asked permission to speak to the king. Then what does he do before he talks to the king? Before he ever gets to that point. This next question is 5 through 10. So questions 5 through 10 are this, okay? Here's what I want you to do. Draw a diagram of Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the great image. Describe each part and what that part represents. So, draw a diagram of that huge thing that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, and it had various parts. Now, and next to each part, I want you to draw what it is and what it represents. Now, we haven't talked about what it represents, but I want to see if you know it anyway. So, what the thing is made of and what the thing represents.
I'm going to stretch my artistic ability.
You can go off to the side if you need to. It's not a big deal. Just do little lines so I know that it's, I know what you're pointing to. And if you know what it's made of but not what it represents, we'll just guess. Do the best you can. I'll give you half credit if you get one or the other. going to give you a hint. You should be drawing a statue. A great statue.
You said his vision, though.
His dream.
Or his dream, yeah.
It's the dream that troubled him. He had multiple dreams. That's why I'm trying to help you out. He had a dream, and in his dream, he saw this huge statue with a giant head made of, and with shoulders made of, and with belly and thighs made of, and then legs and feet made of. Hopefully this is ringing a bell. If it's not, sorry, I can't really help you more than that.
Yeah, I just thought his first dream was about the...
I don't think I said first dream.
Oh. Well, okay.
This is a multi-part dream that each part represents something specific. And it is a huge statue. And at first, the statue you saw, the head was made of this. That represents whom? Let me look up and see what chapter it's in. If that helps. Daniel.
I think it's 4.
No.
3.
Interesting.
Yep, chapter 2.
Wow.
Chapter 2. I believe it was his first dream, though, I think. It was that same dream that none of the wise men could interpret because he was like, well, that's one of the questions. So
Well, I thought the first one was the one about the tree that had, like, the horns and the eye or whatever.
horns in the eye. No, later on, that's the second one, I think, is what you're talking about.
Gotcha. So I think I just flipped them around in my head.
Well, this is the one about the statue in chapter 2. Need any more time, or are you going to stop?
I'm just going to stop. I'm not recalling it very well.
All right, swap papers.
I just wrote the items it was... Oh, goodness gracious.
Okay, good. All right, we'll take it one at a time. See what comes back to you.
We'll see what happens. I'm excited.
Alrighty. Gabe, how many days were the 3 exiles tested by only eating vegetables?
10.
10 days. Is that literal or figurative?
I'd take that literal.
Could be. Don't really know, but it probably. I mean, the fact that it says 10, numbers like 10, 7, 4, sometimes 6, and, sometimes those have a figurative significance, like a complete amount of time would be 10. But 10 is what it says.
I think it shows God's glory more.
Oh, I agree. Whether we know how long it was or not. All right, Parker, how many times better or smarter did the king find the 3 exiles after those 10 days?
2 times.
Nope. Did you get it? 10
10
times. That's why I asked this question. He asked them, test their servants for 10 days. And then the king finds them 10 times better. Isn't that interesting?
Very.
What if he tested them for 20 days?
Oh.
I don't know about that.
Do that.
Number 3. Normally, this will go to you, Gabe. Normally, the king would... No, this will go to you, Parker. The king would present the details of his dream for the wise men to interpret. But what did Nebuchadnezzar do in chapter 2 that almost caused the deaths of all his wise men?
He asked his wise men to know what dream was...
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, what dream was, yeah.
Yeah. You need to tell me the dream. I'm not going to tell it to you. They're all like, no, tell us the dream and we'll interpret it. We're famous
and
interpreter.
interpret. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought that said interest. I was confused.
Yeah. So, but he said, no, I want to know that you guys aren't tricking me. If you have this power, you tell me what the dream was. And they said, we can't do that.
Nice.
Interesting. Okay. 4. After learning that he was to be executed along with all the other wise men, what did Daniel do after seeking an audience with the king, Gabe?
Praise to God for wisdom.
Yes, he prayed Is that it?
That's all it says.
What did you put? Did it put anything else?
It goes to his friends and asks them to pray for him.
Yes, he prayed and he asked his friends to pray. So I'll give you guys both that. But he prayed and he contacted his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and said, "Pray with me."
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Okay, and then the last one is the diagram of Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the great image. All right, it's a statue. Right, it's a statue, and the statue first has got a head. What's the head made of?
Metal.
What kind of metal specifically?
It just says metal.
Do you know? I'll give you a hint. It starts out from the greater to the lesser. A little
Gold?
bit. Head of gold, and that represents you, O Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, you are that head of gold. You are powerful kingdom. But after you, these items are each kingdom's, right? So after that, we have, what's next? The
Silver.
head of gold. Then we have the
Bronze.
chest of silver. The chest of silver. Now, what would the chest of silver represent? Not quite as good as gold, but it comes after Babylon. What's that? gonna be?
Persian.
Yeah, the Medo-Persian Empire. So we got the chest of silver. And then we have the belly, or belly and thighs of bronze. And that represents, not Rome,
I don't know.
bronze, the Bronze Kingdom.
That'd be
A great conqueror after the Persians.
Greek.
Yes,
Greeks.
Alexander the Great and the Greeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Greeks came and they conquered. Then we get to legs. The legs are made of iron. Iron represents
The Romans.
Yeah, the Romans. But then it has the feet. The feet are of iron and clay mixed together. Now, what does that represent? Iron's still the same thing. So
Forgot this one.
iron is still the Romans, but iron and clay don't even mix. Well, what's another weak nation that was mixed with the Romans that didn't really mix with them at all?
Samaritans?
More general.
Jews?
Yeah, the Jews. The Jews, they weren't strong, like militarily strong at all. And they did not get along with Rome, but Rome had control over them. They were kind of mixed together. So that's what the feet of iron and clay are. So, the Romans and the Jews. So I want you guys to kind of have that locked down, because that's pretty important. Some people will try to interpret it differently, but that's probably the way it should be understood, because later on in Daniel, he'll go into more detail about some of these same nations.
How do you want us to score this?
Every single part is a question. So,
Okay.
head, gold is half,
Children
Babylon
using
is
toys.
half.
What if there's no body part and just the metals?
What's the first metal mentioned?
It says clay. It
I didn't
says-
do them in order. I just wrote them down from
Oh,
what I remember there
Okay,
being.
no,
So
no. That's why it helps to draw it if you could think of what it is.
gotcha.
Yep.
So then what do I do?
Well, so head, then chest, head of gold, chest of silver, belly, thighs, bronze, and then feet or legs, iron, feet, and our feet, iron, clay together. Okay, gives me an idea. And then just mark off if you didn't put anything there.
I'll just take it that he went down.
Okay.
Is that what it said?
You went down.
Like from the head, he starts with gold.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
I didn't really do it in order. I just.
Well, you got 3 of them.
Oh, cool.
So, but yeah, order is a good thing. Yeah, so you guys, is this coming back to you now? Do you remember this, or do we need to review chapter 2? Because that's a big deal, kind of a dream. This is the dream that almost got all the exiles, the exiled magicians, magistrates, all the wise men killed. I mean, so it's a big deal. That head of gold, the statue. Does it ring any bells now?
It does, but I get confused with the feet.
Yeah, I understand, because what helps is if you remember, they're both iron. Like, the legs are iron, and then the feet are iron and clay. So the iron's in there twice, which makes sense that it's Rome. The Romans are there twice. But every other one is different. Gold, then switches to silver, then switches to bronze, then switches to iron, then iron again.
And what is this representing?
These are 4 nations that are going to come. This is the future.
Oh, he's just.
God is revealing
the future.
some of the future plans to Nebuchadnezzar.
That's it.
All right, let's look at the syllabus and see if he's got a diagram there. I bet he does, and that might
Yeah,
help.
he does.
That might help us remember. See if you can find it. Chapter 2.
Called the wishing well. I wish with all
Fiery
my
furnace.
to be with
No. All right, he's got just this picture of a head, which...
Oh,
here we go. It's on page 10, 11, and 12 of that pile of papers you got there.
Uchi cha cha.
Starting on page 10, he explains in more detail what it is. The head of gold. And then the biggest part of the dream, you see the chest of arms and silver, midsection, thighs, bronze, legs, feet, iron and mixed clay. So he goes into that detail, but we can't forget the biggest one of all. The biggest one is what happens to the statue. What happens to the statue?
Gets shattered into
By what?
a
What?
billion pieces. A giant boulder, right?
Yeah, a boulder, and it was cut out, but not by human hands.
Yeah.
So hands that were not human cut out this boulder.
alright.
It smashed. Yeah, it shamashed
There you go.
the statue. And then what did it turn into?
I don't remember.
It kept growing and growing and
tree.
growing. No, until it became a huge mountain that overtook the entire earth. Now, what is that stone going to represent?
God.
Well,
Jesus.
God didn't just kind of start and then grow and grow and grow. Jesus didn't kind of start and grow and grow and grow
Church.
either. The church did, right? Doesn't that fit historically? You've got the church on Pentecost. Well, they're pretty small, 3,000. Then they're up to 5,000, which is great, but we got the whole world here. But then it grows and grows and grows. Before you know it, all these nations have crumbled, and the church is now worldwide, all over the place. So that's the main point of the dream. And so what he was really showing him was not just the future, but the most important thing about the future, that these nations, even though they are going to be great and powerful, the kingdoms of the world do not compare to the kingdom of God, the church, his spiritual kingdom.
Cool.
And it is going to just envelop all of them. When it says a huge mountain, it makes me think about that future Mount Zion in Hebrews as well, too, like the spiritual mountain, the church. You get it? So, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. That's it. Daniel's a fun book to look at because there's a lot of neat stuff in there.
It's very visual.
Alrighty, we're going to cover more of the challenging stuff in the book of Daniel is my goal, and some of the simpler stuff, I won't worry about it too much. But by way of introduction, a lot of this you may be able to follow along in here and get some bits and pieces out too. You got your Daniel commentary. You guys are set for a good study of Daniel. Daniel is I think it's a very important book to study because there is a lot of future prophecy in it. There's a lot of there's just a ton of future prophecy. And because of that, it has been two things. It has been attacked by liberals, and it has been abused by modernists, I guess you call it that. I don't know. And what I mean by that is because Daniel mentioned so many things that happen in the future, liberals are going to say there's no way he wrote his book back in the 500s or whatever. There's no way he existed back then. He had to have actually been, or this book had to have been written hundreds of years later, after after the Greeks have come, after the Persians have come. You know what I mean? Because there's just no way future prophecy doesn't happen. Don't you know that? It's impossible. What are you, an idiot? It's impossible. You can't do that. So, therefore, it had to be written later. That's what the liberals are going to say to attack it. However, people who are probably not necessarily liberal, but more modern televangelists, people like that, they're looking to the book of Daniel because they see its predictive prophecy values. They're looking to it, and they're trying to find the key to unlock all the mysteries of the future. Today, they are trying to extract from it something that I believe was never intended to be taken from it, and that is the idea that, we know exactly when God's going to come back, when this rapture will happen, when all kinds of amazing, signs and stuff. Just look to the book of Daniel, calculate the numbers. one number equals a year, or blah, blah, blah. And they come up with all these formulas. And so when you see a modern day study on prophecy, like you flip through the television channel, it's up there in the 50s, right? All the high channels are always religious of some sort. And that's pretty much how it is if you don't have cable. Well, you'll go by one of those guys, Hal Lindsey or somebody else, and they'll be giving you a lecture on prophecy, and they'll probably be, if they're not in the book of Revelation, they're probably going to be in the book of Daniel. And they're probably going to be reading through it and saying, look, this particular goat he had 2 horns. Well, that represents the Twin Towers and how they fell when the plane hit them. And they'll be saying all kinds of interesting things because Daniel is so full of prophecy and they're overdoing it. Now,
They're eisegeting.
Sure, but why do we do that? What is the urge to read into stuff like, why would you even think? Like, I've had people, and I don't remember if it was Daniel or somewhere else, but they're like, did you know the Bible talks about the Twin Towers? 9/11 when they knocked over? Yeah, and they read some verse. And I'm like, that does not talk about the Twin Towers. Why would anyone want to think that it does?
Because it helps modernize it and make it feel more real.
Yeah, it feels very relevant, doesn't it? It feels like, wow, it's speaking right to me. What is the problem with that reasoning, though, with just saying, oh, well, it's relevant, so therefore it must be talking about that? What's the problem with that thinking?
You're not interpreting it correctly.
Why? How do you know that, though? How could you prove to me that it's not correct? What if God wanted me to think relevantly? AKA Twin Towers sounds a lot like this. Oh, Christmas tree sounds a lot like Jeremiah. You know what I mean? Like, what?
Well, by
What's wrong
keeping
with
it
that?
in context. Well, we have to try to figure out why Daniel was saying those things.
Okay.
And to who he was saying it to.
Yeah.
And the time frame of things.
Yeah, that's true. And it's almost like we're ignoring all that stuff when we start pulling up the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
Well, the other problem, along with what you just said, is the fact that every single generation could do the same thing, right? Every single one could say, oh, man, that was when our pyramid fell. All right, that's a little too far back. But you know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, that's when I had 2 plants. They were 2 beautiful trees, and they were in my window. And then my kid came and he cut one down. And then I read Daniel this morning, and I realized God prophesied this. You know what I mean? And how could I argue with that? It's just as applicable as the Twin Towers, only on a smaller scale. And then people living many years to come could still say that. So every single generation has some great horror story or some great application that they think would fit. Yeah, UFOs, all kinds of exciting things. So
Don't Mormons use this book too?
I'm sure they do, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head where. But they use the Bible, so anything that they can get, they're going to use. Yeah. All right, so structure of the book of Daniel, first 6 chapters narratives, and the chapters 7 through 12 is mainly prophecies. So narratives talking about how God is ruling, he's reigning, and then 7 through 12, the last half of the book, prophecies that also show that God is reigning. And it makes it a little bit easier because in the beginning when Daniel's interpreting the dreams and stuff, in the second part, there's an angel and Daniel's interpreting these visions. And the way he talks is different too. The first division you'll see, it's Daniel is in the third person. Almost all the time it's talking about
Yeah, I noticed
Daniel
that was weird.
did this, Daniel did that, Daniel. But in the last half of the book, 7 through 12, he switches to the first person, first and second person. I, me, to you, It's more personal. And so that's kind of shifted too. So it's almost like this is more of a, interpreting dreams, the state of the nation, stuff like that. And then, this is the life of Daniel and what he went through. Yeah.
Is it in chronological order?
No.
Okay.
It is not in chronological order, which is why I'm hoping he has a little, he may not. You know what, let's try out technology. It probably won't work, but if it did, it'd be a wonderful thing. It'd almost justify the expense of buying it.
Because I know that he was old when he was...
Yeah, it is not in chronological order, and I'd rather show it to you if I can. Probably can.
Well, they switch it off like pretty quick though. I mean, they do it before we even get to the. I'm trying to remember. I think it's in like 5 or something where he kind of does the switch.
The switch.
The switch.
Around
Alright, what we got? The update was not successful.
Good.
Sorry.
This Apple
Makes that voice.
junk. How would you feel if your TV talked to you like that, Seth?
I feel like it does.
Just like, sorry.
I would like.
You like,
I would laugh at it. I would say thank
Right,
you.
I think settings general restart, right?
like, shut up, TV.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Wait, reset all settings?
Don't wanna do that. Where's restart? You see it?
Sleep, no.
It is a magical pull the plug.
Pull the oh, he heard it.
Hey Seth, do you know how to fix TVs?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I hear there's a guy that does around here somewhere.
There's a TV in Kid City that's broken
Oh, really? That's sad.
because of Hattie. So you need to fix it.
I'm sorry. What did you do?
No, I'm joking. I just wanted you to.
I would have believed you.
We went in there one period and like the TV would like turn on but nothing would display.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can help you guys a bit. The first 3 chapters are towards the beginning of Daniel.
Beginning of his life.
Beginning of Daniel, and we're talking from 605 to 600 BC is just a guess, but in that 5-year span. All right, let's see if this is nope. It's not
He was a very handsome guy, huh?
So that'll get you started in the right place.
Was he a handsome guy, Seth?
Choose Wi-Fi network. Choose this TV. Probably.
Well, the Bible says he was, doesn't it?
I think it does, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember if it said it about him or the other men.
I hope the Bible one day says about how I'm a handsome man.
I don't think it will. It's already been written.
Darn it.
Oh well.
Sad.
All right, so that's the first part. However, when you get to chapter 4, you're 30 years later. The tree dream is probably about 570 BC. We're gonna guess.
And how old was he when he was in the 600 BC? Like,
He was probably younger. I don't know how young he was.
So the 570.
By the end, he was really old.
570 was what chapters?
4.
Technology, why?
4.
All right, well that's not working. So I'll do it this way. Do it the old-fashioned way.
Yes. Make our ears bleed with chalkboard.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you the level of disdain I have for chalkboards.
All right, so chapter 1, we'll put 604. And these are BC. You guys can remember that, right?
Yeah.
That's chapter 1. Chapter 2, we're gonna put at 602. Chapter 3, we're gonna put at 600. And that's the fiery furnace.
A little bit.
Then chapter 4, we've jumped. Chapter 4, we're down to 570. And chapter 4 is where that tree dream, and then he goes insane.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting. When Nebuchadnezzar goes insane, you're going to see, even in history, a little bit of a change that happened from that event. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. Then we have, from this point on, is going to be 556. This is the reign of a king named Nabonidus, or Belshazzar, as the
Dude,
Bible is going to call him.
Belshazzar's a little turd.
And then that would be, well, all right, we'll go in order here. But the chronologically, it's out of order. So when you get to chapter 5, the handwriting on the wall, you're all the way down at 539. Daniel's an old man. You know, he's probably not going to live much longer. And Persia's about to take over. So that's a long gap. That's chapter 5. But then when we get to chapter 6, we're at 537. And that is, yeah, that's Daniel in the lion's den.
He's an old man.
Old man in the lion's den. Isn't that impressive?
That's why he
It is impressive. Now we'll go to chapter 7, and then in chapter 7 we're back up earlier. we're at 556 BC. Then when we get to chapter 8, so that's the vision of the 4 beasts. Then when we get to chapter 8, the vision of the ram and the goat, we're at 554. Then we already did handwriting on the wall, that's 539, these two come. And then chapters 10 through 12 is chronologically the last. So I'll just put 10 through 12, and that is going to be around 536. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 7, 8, 5, 6, 10 through 12. See how it's out of order like that? You can kind of tell from reading a little bit though, because it'll sound like he's older. Like in, I believe it's chapter 5, handwriting on the wall. Is that chapter 5?
Because there's so many kings are dying.
Mm-hmm. When they call him, they make it sound like he's older already and stuff. And the lion's den, that's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, they do that call for him, and like his Belshazzar's like wife makes it sound like he's like a relic or something.
Yeah. Well, and the other reason, because of the lion's den, the reason why you know it's older is because the king is a Medo-Persian king.
Yeah.
So this is after.
Cyrus. No. Darius.
Yeah, Darius was a Mede who was king, but he was probably king on behalf of the Medes and the Persians. It doesn't say, because some critics or whatever will say, see, the Bible can't be right. Medes were not powerful enough to occupy all of Babylon. The Bible doesn't say the Medes occupied all of Babylon. It says they had a Median king. So it's probably still the Medes and the Persians together, which the Bible does suggest. All right, so that's the order. Now, historically about this book, it's cool stuff. The high priest used this book, and this is according to the testimony of Josephus, when Jerusalem was being attacked by this little man known as Alexander the Great. We're looking around 332 BC, and what it was, Alexander was sieging Tyre. You remember historically that happened. He came, he finished the job,
about this.
and he said, Jews, Jerusalem, you guys, I want your help. Send some military aid over here. And the Jews were like, no, we're not getting involved. Stay away. And so when he finished, he was furious that he didn't send them any aid. So he came back and he's like, I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to totally destroy the Jews, Jerusalem, Judah. So as he was marching out there, instead of sending any troops out, they sent the high priest out and some priests. They're like, go out there. And the very first thing that they did was they showed him the book of Daniel. They showed him some specific prophecies here in the book of Daniel, and let's see what it says. I'll read to you what Josephus says about it. Okay, he was going to destroy Jerusalem, and a priestly procession met the Macedonian as he was approaching Jerusalem. That's Alexander. The high priest showed Alexander, quote, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, end quote. Alexander saw himself reflected in the prophecy. Instead of attacking Jerusalem, he went to the temple and provided sacrifices to be offered on his behalf. So instead of actually attacking, he went to the temple and made a sacrifice to God, because he's a superstitious enough guy anyway, and he saw prophecy of himself in the book of Daniel. Now, first off, the liberals are going to have a problem with that. How can you say Daniel was written later if this Josephus is right and Alexander didn't attack because he saw a prophecy of himself before it happens? So it's interesting. All right. Also good to know, it's been translated into Greek, but the Septuagint translation of Daniel is defective. There are a bunch of errors in that. So the fact that they have errors already, and this is by 250 BC, this kind of suggests that the language of Hebrew was already falling out of use. Even 250 years before Christ, Hebrew was falling out, being replaced by Aramaic and then Greek. So that's why there are a lot of errors and stuff in that book, or it suggests that anyway. Also, there have been, during the intertestamental period, which is what was the intertestamental period?
That's the 400 years of silence.
Like in between the testaments, yeah. During that period, that's when most of the apocryphal books were written, and they also wrote some that they added to Daniel as well.
Wow.
They felt like they should be in there. Now, there's a reason, though. Let me see. The Catholic Church will accept these, too, in their Bible. They'll say these are genuine. But we do not. Why is it that we do not accept these 3 editions as genuine?
They weren't written and presented by apostles or...
Okay, yeah, but I mean, the Old Testament wasn't written by apostles. But you're right, if they're not quoted by... But sometimes apocryphal works are quoted. Doesn't mean that the Bible is legitimate. Even pagan poets are quoted sometimes.
Well, that's why it's called the intertestamental, because God was silent during those years. So if they're writing when God's silent, then it's not from God.
Logically, that makes sense. That's true. I guess some would argue that it's not silent. But there's a bigger reason, too. When it comes to the Old Testament, how do you determine what the canon, C-A-N-O-N, standard should be?
The Jewish accepting.
Yes. Romans chapter 3, verse 2. You should write that down if you don't have it. Romans 3:2 says that the Jews were given the oracles of God. So the Jews had oracles as the highest, most meaningful word for divine revelation they had in the Old Testament. And the Jews were given the oracles of God. So that means what the Jews accept is, logically, the Word of God. Well, the Jews never accepted these. Mm-hmm. They never did. So that's a strong indicator that these do not belong in actual, Scripture. Mm-hmm. But they're in the back of your book, if you want to, or of your syllabi. If you want to look at them, they're interesting.
Have you read them?
It's good to read. I read some of them. I don't remember if I read all of them or not. I started reading some of the Apocrypha and some of the Gnostic Gospels. I just don't remember where I left off and where I... After a while, it gets kind of lame and very weird sometimes. Some of them are pretty straightforward. But what they are, the first edition is called The Song of the Three Holy Children. And they're 67 verses that are sandwiched between verses 23 and 24 of Daniel 3.
And so these are...
So Daniel 3... verse 23, and after that they add 67 verses, and then they have, where verse 24 would be.
These are the ones that were
in a Catholic Bible you might see this.
Okay. Do you want us to know these?
Well, I just want you to be aware of them in case you're ever... I do want you to know about them, because if you have a Catholic friend that's like, my Bible doesn't say that, I don't want you to be like, what? I want you to be surprised.
Bible's fake!
Not only the Apocrypha, but parts of Daniel's kind of changed. The Song of the Three Holy Children. And what that is it's 3 different things. One, it's a lengthy prayer that Azariah prayed, which would be the third, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, the Abednego, that guy. And then the second would be a narrative describing the heating of the furnace and the death of the Chaldean soldiers. Because remember when the soldiers went to push them into the furnace, it was so hot that they died. So, more information, that's good. And a song that supposedly was sung by those Hebrews within the fiery furnace.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, that first edition, the Song of the Three Holy Children, they're singing in the flames. Yeah. And then there's another edition, it's called The History of Susanna. Old Susanna, yeah. In the Septuagint version, it comes just before the book of Daniel. But in the Vulgate, which is the Latin version, it also appears, but it's in chapter 13. So that would be a chapter afterwards. And what does it say? Oh, yeah, that is where Daniel... you should read that just for fun. Daniel is a detective. He does some very nifty detective work. He figures out... You can probably read a summary of it in here just for your own edification. But it's a case of where he's able to figure out a mystery because...
We should do like a Daniel comic book.
Well, you could with that. But he figures out a mystery, and it has to do with somebody seen by a tree, and I think it was a woman accused of adultery or unfaithfulness or something. It's been a while since I read it, but yeah, you should read that. It's fun. And then the third sounds way more exciting than it is. It's called Bell and the Dragon. Doesn't that sound exciting? I know you're sniffing your book right now, but
Sounds like your house.
Bell and the Dragon.
I don't know if that's weird to say.
And this follows chapter 12, verse 13, and the Septuagint is chapter 14. But This is where Daniel demonstrated to the Persian king that his god Bel, B-E-L, was just inferior. That he was not good, that the food from the temple would disappear. Oh. Okay, now I remember. It's been a little while. The Persian god Bel, B-E-L, was definitely real, and one of the reasons why was because the priests of Bel would offer a meal to the god, and they would leave, and then they would come back, and the meal would be eaten, and they would, put it away. And so, the Persian king was like, Daniel, my god Bel is real. And so Daniel basically finds out that the priests were sneaking the food in and out. Anyway, Bel and the dragon, there you go. So it's a lot of ancient detective work kind of stories. So
Awesome.
This is more interesting than some.
David was the first Batman.
Let's see. What does it say? Daniel exposed the lack of power of the dragon that the Persian king worshipped. He fed the beast an explosive cake that killed it.
What?
Daniel was then thrown into a den of starved lions, but he was miraculously untouched. While there, Daniel was fed by the prophet Habakkuk. See? Interesting stuff. You should. Worth looking into, right? Isn't that fun? All right,
Was
we're ready to get
Habakkuk
into...
was Habakkuk alive around the time Daniel was?
I think he was. Yeah, because he's one of the post-exilic prophets, so he's getting towards the end there.
Okay. I didn't know, what point in his ministry he would have been, though.
Well, chronologically, I don't know what they're doing here. And the JWs are going to take the book of Daniel and change chronology, too, in order to calculate dates.
Huh.
So, do you guys have any questions, before we jump into chapter 5, do you have any questions on the first 4 chapters? Because I don't want you to be at a loss. Chapter 2, I think you guys understand that statue represents the nations. We kind of mentioned that. Chapter 1 is pretty straightforward. Chapter 3, where he talks about the golden image and then bow down to it. As soon as you hear the horn, flute, lyre, zither, and all kinds of other instruments. That takes place... Is that chapter 3? Oh, yeah. One of the things about that is when it takes place. Let me look at this again just to make sure. What he was probably trying to do when he built this this huge 90-foot statue to himself, which 90 feet is double the size of our steeple, pretty much it's huge, is he was trying to unite his nation. Because one of the best ways to unite is to have everyone come together on a common goal. So this was probably not just a vain, oh, I'm so happy I love myself, look, gold statue of me, although that was part of it. But he's also trying to bring together the entire nation in one big rah-rah, because, they're not too much longer, they're in danger of slipping, and the Persians are getting more and more powerful, so they need to rally the troops and get real strong. So you can imagine how upset, the reason why he'd be so upset when these 3 men refused to bow to his statue. I mean, consider thousands and thousands of people in this great musical procession, and we're all together like a wave. Oh, look at those 3. They're just standing there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like killjoy right there. So much for uniting everyone. You do it twice, and these 3 guys are like, no, I'm not bowing to you. That absolutely kills the plan of unity, which is why he's so mad that he's like, heat that furnace up 7 times hotter, which probably just means a complete amount. As hot as you can get that thing, just burn it up. And yeah, that's probably what that was about. So that helped me. I didn't realize that at first, but now it makes more sense. It's not just a pointless vanity thing. They were actually going against the entire plan of the nation at that time, not just, being faithful to God only. So that was kind of cool. Brave of them. Any questions? All right. Chapter 5. I'll read the first verse. Gabe, let you read the second, and we'll just go around clockwise today, just to be different. The first verse says, Belshazzar, the king, held a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles, and he was drinking wine in the presence of the 1,000. Now, before we move on, remember, chapter 5, what year are we looking at?
Chapter 5 is 539.
539 BC. This is late. Persia is about to take over. And this might be a last-ditch effort. We'll get into this a little bit more. But Yeah, this was probably a last-ditch effort to find favor with the offended gods and somehow save them, because they're not doing well. Now, I forgot. Sorry, I need to tell you guys something else before we go on. Nebuchadnezzar died in 562, historically. He was followed briefly on the throne by his son Amel-Marduk, which the Bible calls evil Merodach, in case you want to know, and that's in 2 Kings 25:27.
560 what?
562 is when Nebuchadnezzar died, and then 2 years after that, write down 2 Kings 25:27. Real short reign, and then that king, evil Merodach, that king was assassinated by Nebuchadnezzar's son-in-law. But then that son-in-law died in 536, and his son succeeded him on the throne for about 9 months. Then after that, a man named Nabonidus became king, and this guy was an archaeologist. He was also a religious fanatic, this Nabonidus person. And the leadership of Babylon just did not like him. It was bad relations with this guy. And so what ended up happening is most of his reign, he was forced to be away. He was in the Arabian desert. The people hated him so much. So he was out there in the desert doing his god thing, his worship or whatever it was. And while Nabonidus was gone, his son, a man named Belshazzar, was reigning for him. He acted as like a co-regent. He wasn't technically the king, but by all practical definitions, he was king.
So Belshazzar in chapter 5 is not actually the son of Nebuchadnezzar?
He is a son, a descendant. The word son in Hebrew, there's no word for grandson or great-grandson. It's all son.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was a son, but down the line. Now, this is the reason why we're getting into this, though, is because the critics have really been, for a long time, they said, there's just no way, this isn't possible. There is no Belshazzar reigning. We know the history of Babylon, and it wasn't him. There's Nabonidus, and there are these other people. Well, we uncovered information that shows us that Nabonidus, yeah, he was king, but he was king way away because nobody liked him. And so Belshazzar was reigning for him. And according to the Persian account of Nabonidus, it says, quote, he entrusted the kingship to his son Belshazzar. It even says that. The Persian account spells it right out.
Huh.
Then he moved to Tema, which is a shrine in the middle of the Arabian desert. And then there's another inscription called the Haran inscription that clears up the mystery of why Nabonidus was absent from Babylon for 10 years. And it says he was a religious zealot, that people hated him. So we found these inscriptions. It spells it all out. So it all makes sense now. So, according to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, all those guys, Belshazzar was king. He was acting like king, even though he might technically have not been the king. You know what I mean? So you got to know all that ahead of time for it to make sense. All right, let's keep reading. That was verse 1. Now verse 2.
When Belshazzar tasted the wine, he gave orders to bring the gold and silver vessels which Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines might drink from him.
Remember, father, the word father can also mean ancestor. Mm-hmm. All right, not necessarily dad.
Actually, a little footnote for that.
Good.
All right. Then they brought in the wooden vessels that had been taken out of the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem. And the king and his lords and his wives and the concubines drink from them.
They drank the wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone.
Suddenly the fingers of a man's hand emerged and began writing opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the back of the hand that did the writing.
Okay, now, refresher here. the reason why you're wondering, what are these gods of wood and stone, and do they really have gods of materials back then? Well, they're probably represented by different ones. Like Marduk would have been the main god that they were worried about being offended, but any other gods too that they had, some of the lesser ones, which I haven't written here. Yeah, Marduk would be the first one. Second one would be Nebo, which is the god of wisdom, literature, education. Third one, they have a god called Nergal, Nergal, god of war. And then Ishtar, goddess of fertility. So when they talk about the gods of wood, stone, and they're probably referring to their different gods, because they had a multiplicity of them. Although I do believe they had a pantheon, which would mean 5, right? Oh, I'll show my ignorance here. But anyway, yeah, so that's probably what they're doing. And why do that? Well, because militarily they're not doing well. So let's bring together a great feast. Let's try to call upon the gods to not be angry with us anymore, to make us, fine. And what better way to do that than to take Yahweh's mugs, his goblets from the old temple that his daddy, that his ancestor had taken, and drink to their gods with them, praise their gods. Big slap in the face to God, and he probably didn't even know it. So let's see what happens. Verse 6. I love this, actually. Verse 6.
Then the king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him. His limbs gave way, and his knees knuckled together.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I just love picturing that. Like, the king called aloud to bring in the conjurers, the Chaldeans, the diviners. The king spoke and said to the wise men of Babylon, any man who can read this inscription and explains its interpretation to me shall be clothed with purple and have a necklace of gold around his neck and have authority as third ruler in the kingdom.
Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the inscription or make known its interpretation to the king.
All right, I'm going to pause there for a second. I never thought about this, but I wonder if the fact that he says third ruler of the kingdom is a hint that he's only the second, and that literally there is a first.
I was going to ask you that.
I didn't think about that, actually. It could be. Makes sense. All right, keep reading. Sorry. Read
where
with
are
expression. This guy's terrified.
Where are we?
Where are we? Verse.
What did you just read?
Did you read verse 8 or 9?
I don't remember.
Read.
I think part is on 9.
Yeah, read 9.
Mine 9. All right. Then King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his lords were perplexed.
So when they couldn't read the instructions written, he's even paler. Like, how pale is this guy? I wish I could see. It's so funny. The queen entered. Oh, queen, got to save the day. The queen entered the banquet hall because of the words of the king and his nobles. The queen spoke and said, O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts alarm you, or your face be pale.
There is a man in your kingdom in whom is a spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of your father, illumination, insight, and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, the king, appointed him chief of the magicians, conjurers, Chaldeans, and diviners.
Because an excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve problems were found in Daniel, whom the king named Belshazzar.
Yeah, Belteshazzar. Get the T in there, or else you'll be confused. Belteshazzar. And then he summons him. Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king spoke and said to Daniel, Are you that Daniel who was one of the exiles from Judah, whom my father the king brought from Judah?
Now, I have heard about you, that a spirit of the gods is in you, and that illumination, insight, and extraordinary wisdom have been found in you.
15.
All right. Now the wise men and enchanters have been brought before me to read this writing and make it known to me the interpretation, but they could not show me the interpretation of the matter.
But I personally have heard about you that you are able to give interpretations and solve difficult problems. Now, if you are able to read the inscription and make its interpretation known to me, you will be clothed with purple, wear a necklace of gold. These are some of the most expensive things around, obviously, around your neck. And you will have authority as third ruler in the kingdom.
Then Daniel answered and said before the king, "Keep your gifts for yourself, or give your rewards to someone else. However, I will read the inscription to the king and make the interpretation known to him."
O King, the Most High God, give Nebuchadnezzar your father kingship and greatness and glory and majesty.
Because of the grandeur which he bestowed on him, all the peoples, nations, and men of every language feared and trembled before him. Whomever he wished he killed, and whomever he wished he spared alive. And whomever he wished he elevated, and whomever he wished he humbled. Now before we go on, it keeps saying, Nebuchadnezzar your father, but what does that mean?
It's just ancestor.
Ancestor. Yeah, ancestor. Previous person, yeah. Don't want anyone to get confused. And I guess this is the difficulty when usually you can just read the Bible and take it at face value. It's as simple as that. But when some words are not specific, a lot of times it is the father. A lot of times it's forefather or ancestor. And so you just, you have to be careful. Let's keep reading and I'll finish out this chapter.
Could they have interpreted it as ancestor and it been accurate in our language? Or do you think it's good that
I
they
think
put
so,
father?
but the problem is it gives us a different idea. Like when you think, I'm like, oh yeah, my ancestor told me. You don't think about my dad. You think about way, way, way back somebody. You know what I mean?
Or maybe great-grandfather?
Yeah, but great-grandfather is a specific father. It's not, great-grandfather means it's my grandfather's dad. So we don't have a word. The only words we have are, father or ancestor or forefather. But forefather and ancestor still give the hint, or most people would think that they're way, way, way back. So it's almost like we need a new English word to encompass that. Recent fathers of late. I don't know how you'd say it, but ancestor. I think you could substitute it if you had a thought that even your dad is considered your ancestor too, and it might be your dad that's talking about, or probably not your dad, thankfully, because they would have a lot of bad things to say about him. So, go ahead.
20?
I believe so. Yes.
But when his heart was, or is it 19?
No, I read 19.
But when his heart was filled up and his spirit became so proud that he behaved arrogantly, he was deposed from his royal throne, and his glory was taken away from him.
He was driven from among the children of mankind, and his mind was made like that of a beast, and his dwelling was with wild donkeys. He was fed grass like an ox, and his body was wet with dew from the heaven, until he knew that the Most High God rules over the kingdom of mankind, and sets over it whom he will.
Yet you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, even though you knew this.
But you have exalted yourself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your nobles your nobles, your wife, and your concubines have been drinking wine from them, and ye have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see, hear, or understand. But the God in whose hands are your life breath, and all your ways you have not glorified.
Then from his presence the hand was sent, and the writing was inscribed.
Now this is the inscription that was written out. Mene, mene, tekel, huparsin.
This is the interpretation of the message. Meaning, God has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it.
Numbered.
27.
27.
All right. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting.
Paris, your kingdom has been divided and given over to the Medes and the Persians. Now, do you guys recognize this quote from an old movie?
Yeah.
Remember the movie A Knight's Tale?
Yeah.
You have been numbered, you have been measured, you have been weighed. Anyway, it made me think of this every time. Keep going.
I like that.
Then Belshazzar gave orders, and they clothed Daniel with purple, and put a necklace of gold around his neck, and issued a proclamation concerning him that he now had authority as the third ruler in the kingdom. No question.
Let's see how long this lasts. Yeah.
Why did he said he wasn't going to accept it, but it seems like he accepted the gift.
I think he was forced to. It doesn't say that he accepted it. It says Belshazzar gave the orders. You don't contradict the king's orders. You know what I mean?
Got me.
You're third ruler of the kingdom. I don't want to be. I don't care. I'm king. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because let's see how long his reign lasted. His third ruler reigns.
Yeah,
Verse 30.
Day and a half.
Go ahead.
All right.
Not even.
I know. That very night, Belshazzar and the Chaldean king was killed, and Darius.
That's my verse, right? So Darius.
Oh, sorry.
Darius the Mede received the kingdom at about the age of 62. So,
awesome.
Lasted about 12 hours. He was third ruler of the kingdom. Good for Daniel, right? Didn't even want it, and he didn't have to keep it for very long. So he alluded to what happened in chapter 4, where the king Nebuchadnezzar had gone insane. And that is a really fascinating story. And it's neat how from that time on, after that, he never advanced his troops again. There are some interesting differences you can look at in your Smith commentary, but before he was all the time being super religious, appealing to his gods and all this other stuff and advancing his troops. But then after the time frame of that insanity, 7 years or 7 times of insanity, he makes a lot more just personal statements. He doesn't advance his troops. He boasts a lot more about himself, but not about his gods. So there are some interesting differences that people noted.
The Jewish God at this time?
No, I don't think he does that either. I don't think
Interesting.
He's probably got way too much pride to just get pulled into that. But he did write down what happened.
That's weird, though.
So, I mean, he's still pagan.
Oh, we have...
He gives glory to the God of heaven, but he wasn't converted. There's no evidence that he was. He's just recognized, all right, there's another God out there, and he's very powerful. I don't want to offend him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is nice, but not good enough. Doesn't land him in Hebrews 11.
I think it's interesting because it seems like even after Belshazzar's told what these words mean and everything and all that, it's kind of like he's just a naive kid and just kind of lets it go by as...
Maybe he's been drinking a lot. I don't know. He's been praising those gods.
I don't know. It's just...
Probably got wasted.
It's funny to me a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, chapter 6, we're going to skip, not because I want to, but because I think you can understand it pretty well. It is a pretty neat story. Remember how it's King Darius, the Mede, and remember, the Medes, it just says that the king was a Mede. It doesn't say that the Medes were the only ones that occupied the region. The Medo-Persians are the ones that did it, and the Persians will be the more powerful ones in that alliance.
So we're going to 7?
So we're going to skip to 7, but just remember, chapter 6, he's an old man. And yet he is able to sleep with the lions, not scared. Things are good. So, chapter 7, this is where it gets to the fun, interesting stuff. This is going to be around 556 BC. Babylon is in the beginning stages of fading now. So 556, what did we just read? It was chapter 5, was 539. So we're looking at almost 18 years earlier. Something like that. Is it my turn to read? I think it's my turn.
I have no idea.
All right, chapter 6. Chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. This is third person, right? So
Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, And behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea.
Okay. And the four great beasts came out of the sea, different from one another.
4 great beasts. All right. Number 4, what does it usually represent?
The directions of the whole
4
world.
directions of the compass, 4 corners of the earth, you might say. Universal, worldwide. Now, the sea usually represents like a sea of faces, sea of people, like all the great, great people all over the place. Well, out of the peoples comes these 4, what does it say? 4 great beasts. Now, here's where it's much more fun to flip to your paper on the syllabus around page
24.
You're not far off, actually. 19. Go to page 19.
19.
Yeah. Yep. Here we go. The 4 beasts and the little horn.
This little beast. He's a beastie boy.
So,
We said 19.
yeah, flip to page 19 so you can see some little diagrams there.
Little diagram.
It might bless you.
I feel blessed already.
Okay.
Let your
Now, the fact that they're animals suggests that these nations, or they're going to be nations, are vicious nations. They're conquering nations.
Oh.
They're not the only things out there. All right, verse 4. Who is that?
She.
I think it's you.
Is it? All right. The first was like a lion. It had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked. Until its wings were plucked.
Yeah.
And it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it. Now, a couple of things. Wings are usually symbolic of speed and power. It's, angels have all those wings and stuff. Well, a lot of times wings equaled power back in those days. Also, this nation is probably representing Babylon. And the question becomes, well, why is it a winged lion that starts to get plucked and look more like a man and upright and be more civilized? Well, we know that the kingdom of Babylon started off as a huge, powerful, dominating military kingdom that later on became more civilized and less military-like. What's the word? Military. Anyway, remember after the insanity of Nebuchadnezzar, he didn't advance his troops anymore. So there was a marked difference between the state of Babylon at the last half. So that's probably why you got an animal that's starting to look more civilized towards the end. Next verse. I want to make sure you guys know what each of these animals represent. So make sure you've got it etched in your mind. We got Babylon here.
Babylon's the girl. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth, between its teeth, and thus they said to it, Arise, devour much meat.
All right, what does it mean to say 3 ribs were in its mouth?
I don't know.
If I walked in here, if I had 3 ribs in my mouth and it was just blood was oozing, you'd think, you're crazy.
Run out the window.
Yeah, you'd think I'm insane. This is not only vicious, it is like, it's
Is
brutal.
this the Assyrians?
No. The Assyrians are long ago. The Assyrians have long passed. Remember, they were before Babylon. So we're going in the same order as the statue, if that helps you remember.
Gotcha.
So this is going to be, and of course they debate these things, obviously, but most likely, and it's pretty clear, this is the Medo-Persian Empire.
Gotcha.
Now, why was this bear raised up on one side? Why was it lopsided? Well, two common explanations. There are others. One is that it was crouching in a position to attack, like it's just ready, because it's already got the ribs in its mouth. Or the second is the fact that the Medes and the Persians were not equal. The Medes were a lot weaker, Persians were a lot more powerful, so it's a lopsided alliance. Could be either one. I don't know if I like one over the other, And then verse 6. Yep. Isn't this fun? See the animals.
Cool.
All right. After this, I looked, and behold, another like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird, and on its back, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion, was given to it.
Okay. This one has 4 wings, 4 heads, and, well, what comes after the Medes and the Persians? What nation are we most likely talking about?
Greek.
The Greeks, Alexander the Great. 4 wings, remember 4 is like worldwide, universal. Wings and 4 heads, that symbolize really quick, really swiftness. Not really swiftness, huh? Really great swiftness, power. Whoever this was, well, we know who it was, Alexander the Great, most likely. He was quick. And one of the reasons why, you know how back in those days, when you fought a battle, advancing troops took time. You had to go, you had to lay siege, conquer or whatever. And then as you finally defeat one, then you plunder them, you get what you need, and then you move on to the next place. And so you could pretty well calculate, how many days it took for a military to make its way to you and to attack you and everything. Alexander the Great was one of the people to just blow those rules aside. He had a special system, and I don't know the exact details of it, but my understanding is he would start attacking a nation, and as he's in the middle of attacking it, and he sees, I'm doing pretty good, I think I got it. All right, half the troops come with me, and he would begin attacking the next place. And while he's attacking the next place, they would finish up over here, bring some of the plunder there, and he would advance 2x, 3 times as fast as most military troops would. So normally you'd think, oh, we got a few days, they're coming, whatever. Not with Alexander. He's there before you know it, like way faster than anyone thought he could be. And so he'd catch you by surprise and he'd kill you. It's one of the amazing ways that he was a great warrior.
He was a lot of man.
So the wings make sense to symbolize this. Was it leopard with the wings?
4 heads.
And the 4 heads. Yeah, he's all over. And
forehead.
Forehead, yeah. But also, he conquered the world too. I mean, I'd say that dominion, headship over the world could be implied with that possibly too.
But now, guys, now it gets exciting.
All right, verse 7, verse 8. Is that mine? I think it's my
so.
go.
Yeah,
After this, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying and extremely strong. It had large iron teeth, just like the statue. It devoured and crushed and trampled the remainder with its feet, and it was different from all the other beasts that were before it. It had 10 horns.
Well, while I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boast.
Now, don't know. We can speculate, but obviously we're talking about Rome. I think the iron kind of gives that away. But what are the 10 horns? And what is the little horn that destroyed 3 of the horns? Is there a page on there? Yeah, look at that. Look at that beautiful picture right there. What is that
That's
thing?
how I picture the devil.
Dreadful 4th beast. Well, we're talking about the Roman Empire. Now, the number 10 could just be a symbolic number. 10 symbolizes what, generally? 10 times better.
Big number.
Complete, not universal, but yeah, complete, done. Complete amount, bigger, way bigger. Sort of like 7 or 10, same idea generally. But 10 horns would suggest horns represent what?
Power.
Might or power. 10 horns means a complete amount of power. Now, could this literally be talking about, I mean, there's so many speculations you could get at. Could it be talking about 10 of the major Roman emperors, Roman Caesars? Not all of them were as powerful as the others, but they could be that. What is the little horn? It could be, the little horn could represent the Roman emperors and how they took power from Rome for themselves and did all kinds of damage to the church in the beginning. Some people think it's the Pope. The papacy is that horn.
That's what that looks like on there to me. I was like, that kind of looks like...
That's a picture of the Pope.
It's like the Pope.
What does Chambers give? Does he give any explanations?
No, I haven't read it yet. All right.
I think on the back side, yeah, he gives you a little chart of the views of the kingdoms and representative views compared. There are going to be different views out there, and this is helpful, but little 10 horns, then the little, so there's that big beast. They all think it's Rome. Then the 10 horns, well, some think it's, kingdoms of today, and then the final destruction of victory of the church over Roman paganism. So these are some of the different ideas, but historical Rome. Then some think it's the millennial reign of Christ, so it's his second coming, and so there's going to be persecutors in the future. Yeah, it's newer. Isn't it interesting? All these interesting views. I'll leave it at that. I don't know.
Can they be all of them?
Well, some of them are exclusive. I mean, it's possible that it could be more than one, I guess. Because when it talks about the 10 horns being kingdoms, well, are they modern kingdoms or are they past kingdoms? Well, I think they're probably past. And probably not even past kingdoms. They're probably past leaders or something, maybe. I'm not sure. Then some people think there's going to be a new revived Roman Empire. And then Jesus will judge him at his second coming and start his millennial reign. All kinds of exciting things. See, you get all this from Daniel, so that's why it's important to kind of look into it. But I think usually the simplest makes the most sense. Not always, but usually. So, we left off at verse 8, right? So it's probably not the Pope. It's probably those emperors that persecuted God's people. But we don't know. It's just not clear enough, so you can't be dogmatic when you say that. All right, verse 9.
Nothing?
Yeah, 9 through 14.
I kept looking until thrones were set up, and in the ancient days took his seat. And the Ancient of Days took his seat. His vesture was like white snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were a burning fire.
A stem of fire issued and came out from before him. A thousand thousands, that's weird, served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were open.
I'm going to say that's a lot.
Yeah.
10,000 times 10,000. Then I kept looking because of the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body was destroyed and given to the burning fire. Giant sacrifice. Keep going.
As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time.
Interesting. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed.
Okay. You skipped verse 13, so I'm going to read that, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I kept looking into the night visions, and behold, the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. And he came up to the Ancient of Days, God, and was represented before him, and to him was given dominion and glory. You see, that kind of really clarifies that verse quite a bit. So, historically, this makes sense, because we got Babylon, we got Persia, Medo-Persian, we got the Greeks, and we got the Romans. Well, the Babylons, the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, they didn't just, bam, they're dead. Even though a lot of them were dethroned, they still existed for a while, and then they faded into history, which is what it says these beasts are going to do too. They're going to eventually die off, not like completely slaughtered. However, that other one, the fourth beast, it's slaughtered. It's wiped out. And so what that's probably referring to is after each of these kingdoms faded away, Jesus comes and he sets up his kingdom. Yep. And so literally, if we're going to say this refers to something, it's probably talking about Jesus' ascension. When Jesus came to appear before the Ancient of Days, that's after he died on the cross and he came back up into heaven with God. his work was finished, and now he waits for his enemies to be made his footstool. He's reigning right now. So that is probably what this is referring to. Makes good sense anyway. Yep. Verse 15, please.
To me,
Yeah, finish up this chapter.
As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me.
16.
I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of all of the things.
These great beasts, which are 4 in number, are 4 kings who will arise from the earth.
Wow. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever for all ages to come.
Verse 19.
Then I desired to know the truth about the 4 beasts, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, and it was, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped what was left with his feet.
All right, I'm going to read the rest of this chapter because I want to finish up before 11. So, and the meaning of the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, before which 3 of them fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth uttering great boasts, which was larger in appearance than its associates. So you got 10 horns and that little horn that came back and took out 3. I kept looking, and that horn was waging war with the saints and overpowering them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one. And the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast will be a 4th kingdom on the earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, and tread it down, and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings will rise, and another will rise after them. And he will be different from the previous ones, and will subdue the 3 kings. He will speak out against the Most High, and will wear down the saints of the highest one. He will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will sit for judgment, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and the dominions will serve and obey him. At this point, the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming me, and my face grew pale, but I kept the matter to myself. Now this, not exactly sure. A lot there, a lot of speculation. The 2 things that I would suggest could fit this. One would be Antiochus Epiphanes, which was the guy that came in the intertestamental period and desecrated the Jewish altar. And Judas Maccabee's led a revolt against him. It could be a reference to him. I wonder if the Roman Emperor Titus in AD 68, roughly AD 70, who came in there and wiped out the Jews, I wonder if that could be a fulfillment too. Those are a couple of possibilities. Fact of the matter is, it's not super clear, so can't say that we know clearly either way. But those would be my 2 guesses as to what that might be referring to, if it isn't something future or the Pope or something different. So that's interesting. Now we get into chapter 8. Let me see how far I want to make today. I think, chapter 8 is as far as I wanted to go. So we can do this. We can do this. Chapter 8. Gabe, read verses 1 through 4, please.
Ooh. In the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar, the king, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, subsequent to the one who appeared to me previously. I looked in the vision, and while I was looking, I was in the citadel of Susa, which is in the province of Elam, And I looked in the vision, and I myself was beside the Ulai canal. Then I lifted my eyes and looked it, and behold, a ram which had 2 horns was standing in front of the canal. Now the 2 horns were long, but one was longer than the other, with the longer one coming up last. I saw the ram butting westward, northward, and southward, and no other beast could stand before him, nor was there anyone to rescue from his power. But he did as he pleased and magnified himself.
Okay, look at your next page on here, page 25. Get the rams fighting each other. First ram here, 2 horns, one bigger, one smaller. This is almost universally accepted, by the way. Almost everyone agrees on this, which is helpful. It is the Medo-Persian Empire. Can you read verses 5 through 8?
Yeah.
Parkour.
Alright. As I was considering, behold, a male goat came from the west across the face of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat was a
Conspicuous.
Stood out. It had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. He came to the ram with the 2 horns, which I had seen standing on the bank of the canal, and he ran at him in his powerful wrath. I saw him come close to the ram, and he was enraged against him, and struck the ram and broke his 2 horns. And the ram, who had no power to stand before him, I just screwed that up. Sorry. But he cast him down to the ground and trampled on him, and there was no one who could rescue the ram from his power. Then the goat became exceedingly great, but when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and instead of it there came up 4 conspicuous horns toward the 4 winds of the heavens.
Excellent. Alexander the Great and the Greeks. He's so fast his feet didn't even touch the ground. World domination. His unibrow horn. That's what he's got. A big old unibrow horn.
Sicko.
Killed everyone. You like staring at that. Is so. Oh, what
He
is that?
pokes you in the eye.
So he came and he crushed the Medo-Persian Empire, and he dominated the world. But then after that, what does it say? He had. He magnified himself. But his horn was broken, and in his place came up what?
4 little horns.
4 unibrow horns. Ouch.
Pointing
That's
towards
a quadribrow.
the 4 heavens.
A quadribrow horn came out of him. And what that represents is... Does he give you a little chart here?
I'm trying to see here.
No, he doesn't. But there are 4 kings that the Greeks broke into, 4 divisions. And we've got their commanders, I should say. There's the Macedonians, Thrace, Asia Minor, Syria and Babylonia, and Egypt. And so the Macedonian was Cassander. The Thrace and Asia Minor was, I don't know how to pronounce this name, but Lysimachus. And then the other ones that are more familiar are the Seleucids, Seleucus in Syria and Babylonia. And then the Egypt region were called the Ptolemies, Ptolemys. Ptolemies. You can find this in your Smith book, so you can look it up again. But that's exactly what happened to the Greeks. So this prophecy is spot on, as we would expect. And I'll read verses 15 through 18, which says...
Oh, we're hopping.
Wait, what happened to the...
Oh, wait, did I skip? I'm sorry.
Well, you
9 through
said
14 is
nine.
where I'm going to read.
9 through
Wait, what happened to the Greeks?
After Alexander moved on, I think he died, they eventually inwardly revolted, corruption, whatever, and they dispersed into, I thought it was a total of 8, but 4 major regions over there.
I really like Smith's, the way he does his commentaries. Does he have a commentary over like every Old Testament book?
I think he does. You can look on his website, but you'll be collecting you'll be collecting them in the DA.
Yeah.
You're getting pretty close, but you still have a ways to go. All right, let's see. There are some where he puts a few together, like post-exilic prophets,
Like prophets.
Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Yeah, he gets more specific than Minor Prophets, though. Haggai, Zechariah, that's 3 books instead of all 12. All right. 9. Out of one of them came forth a rather small horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the beautiful land. My footnote says Palestine there. It grew up to the host of heaven and caused some of the host and some of the stars to fall to earth, and it trampled them down. Now we know this is figurative if the stars are falling to earth. And on account of the transgression, the host will be given over to the horn along with the regular sacrifice. It will fling truth to the ground and perform its will and prosper. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that particular one who was speaking, how long will the vision about the regular sacrifice apply, while the transgression causes horror, so as to allow both the holy place and the host to be trampled? He said to me, for 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the holy place will be properly restored. Now, how long is it going to be trampled? This long amount of time. We're talking here about who?
Rome.
And we're not there yet.
Oh, Persians. I mean Greek.
Yeah.
After the Greeks, one is going to come up and desecrate, ruin the sacrifices. Historically, when did that happen?
70 AD?
Before that.
In the
Before Rome.
200 something?
What was the guy's name? Do you remember?
You just said it.
I probably did.
His name was Antiochus Epiphanes.
Antiochus Epiphanes. He's the guy that offered the pig on the altar, and Judas Maccabees led that revolt against him. He's the one. Bottom of page 26 on your thing here. From the Seleucids is where this guy came, from that one horn. And almost everyone agrees that it's obviously talking about that. So and Josephus even comments on that too, where I think that's on page 27. Josephus makes his comment. And then here's Maccabees on page 28 if you want to read about how it happened. That's where we learn about it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so all that's over here. So
I won't read it.
you should.
I want to.
The 2,300 more. It's not that long. 300 morning and evenings, days. Then there's some calculations. Roughly 6 years between the time when Antiochus began to desecrate the temple to his death. So that could be what it's talking about. The period of time where Antiochus came and desecrated the temple and then he died. Or some people also calculate it in different ways. What is it? Subject under let me look at that. Subject under discussion is regular sacrifices. Antiochus Epiphanes captured and desecrated the temple in summer of 168 BC. About 6 months later, he set up a statue of Zeus. And then on Kislev, the 25th of 165 BC, 3 years later to the day, the temple was rededicated under Judas Maccabees. Thus, the feast of dedication, or Hanukkah, is in December.
Oh, Hanukkah.
So, that would be another way they calculate it. What was that? Got a little confused reading there. 3 years later. Okay, well that's if you do the 3.5 year calculation, and Smith has more to say on this, but some people break it up into 3.5 years. So either way, I guess the point is, both ways fit. Both ways fit. You have the dedication of the temple, or you have from when he started the desecration to when he died. Either way, it fits.
Sure.
Let's read
15 through 17.
15 through 18, please.
My turn?
Yeah. And don't worry, I'll finish up because it's a long amount of reading. So.
When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. And behold, standing before me was one who looked like a man. And I heard the voice of a man between the banks of Ulai, and he called out and said, Gabriel, give this man an understanding of the vision. So he came near to where I was standing, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, Son of man, understand that the vision pertains to the time of the end. Now, while he was talking with me, I sank into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. But he touched me and made me stand upright. He said, Behold.
All right, you can stop there. You're getting excited. But
Oh,
Gabriel, the angel Gabriel visits Daniel, and what does Daniel do?
faints. Because he's scared.
Isn't that funny? He goes into a deep sleep, and Gabriel's like, Gabriel, I need to tell you something very important. I need to tell you something very important. And
That's
all right,
awesome, man.
and we'll go on. Yeah, is it the number one phrase of angels is
Don't be afraid.
do not be afraid. Yeah.
If I ever made a movie, of this scene specifically, that's what I'd have him do. I'd have him faint and then pick him up by his shirt and be like, dude, listen up.
All right. Hey, this last part, guys, is going to spell it out for us pretty well. It explains these kingdoms,
I'm bad
and
at
I like
spelling.
that. That's all right. I'm going to read it for us.
Good.
19 and following. He said, "Behold, I'm going to let you," and this is Gabriel talking, the angel Gabriel, "I'm going to let you know what will occur in the final period of the indignation, for it pertains to the appointed time of the end. The ram which you saw with the two horns represents the kings of Media and Persia." He spells it out. Isn't that great? No wonder you can't, how can you not agree when he says it? And how can the liberals get around this? Well, they say Daniel must have been written later. There's just no way he would have gotten it this specific. The shaggy goat represents the kingdom of Greece, and the large horn that is between his eyes is the first king. The broken horn and the four horns that arose in its place represent four kingdoms which will arise from his nation, although not with his power. In the latter period of their rule, when the transgressors have run their course, a king will rise, insolent and skilled in intrigue. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. He will destroy to an extraordinary degree and prosper and perform his will. He will destroy mighty men and the holy people. And through his shrewdness, he will cause deceit to succeed by his influence, and he will magnify himself in his heart, and he will destroy many while they are at ease. He will even oppose the prince of princes, but he will be broken without human agency. The vision of the evenings and mornings which has been told is true, but keep the vision secret, for it pertains many days in the future. Then I, Daniel, was exhausted and sick for days. I got up again and carried on the king's business, but I was astounded at the vision, and there was none to explain it.
What a girl.
So God peels back the curtain of the future for Daniel, and he just shows him this is what's going to happen, and very pointed, very specific. If you want good evidence, I mean, I think this is pretty good evidence of accurate prophecy. You can't get much more specific than spelling out exactly what's going to happen with these nations, and Daniel does. So it's a shame that people get all caught up on Daniel for the wrong reasons and get so concerned about the end times, because if you just look at what Daniel was about, you've got incredible evidence. You know, you've got real, genuine, accurate evidence for the inspiration of Scripture, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
what's
Do you
kinda-
guys have any questions about this?
What's kind of cool is that this vision he got was before he was in the lion's den. So
Yeah.
probably his faith was all strengthened.
Probably. He knew God took care of the future.
And that's
And
why
remember, the last
was
part of this
very-
vision, it's Antiochus Epiphanes is most likely who he's talking about there.
At the very end.
At the very end, that's that one who's going to prosper, but not by his own power, and desecrate the religion. Antiochus Epiphanes, because he's the guy that came out of the Greeks, the four nations that came from Alexander the Great, which he describes. All right, I'm going to pray for us.
Thanks.
Father, I want to ask that you help us to grasp this. Some of the greatest evidence for you is actually easily missed, I guess, because we're looking to be entertained sometimes instead of looking at the truth. And God, thank you for showing the future to Daniel so that we can see historically how accurate you are, and help us not to ignore the times where you've stepped in and shown us your power and shown us the reality of you. But help us to be aware of them and to not keep asking for more, but to just look at the ones that you've already given and to know them better. Help these guys as they try to do that, and help them in the future to be able to teach this material in a way that you want, and to be able to discern truth from lies. And it's in your son's name I pray. Ooh, right.
Are you collecting our lives?
I'm collecting your work.
You are.